Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I'd like to chat about the cosy feeling. It's difficult to describe, but some of you have already got it, you might not know. But basically, when we start growing orchids and we build a collection, we're going to get problems. No, I don't think anybody builds a larger collection of orchids without having problems. Some are little problems, some can seem overwhelming at the time. I mean, you get an outbreak of spider mites that hits your collection, a lot of plants all at once. It can seem daunting, and sometimes you feel that you're never going to get through it. But you probably do, you know. And again, we lose some orchids on the way, on the journey. Again, that can be very, very upsetting at first. And the main reason I think it's upsetting, unless it's a sentimental gift or something like that, is the fact that we might not know why. So we're frightened we're going to do it again. And there's a feeling of worry. Every time we're thinking about our orchids or we're dealing with them in any shape or form, there's an element of worry in the back of our mind. That cosy feeling comes when that's gone. And you may not even realise it's gone, but it has. So what does it leave? It leaves like me today. In my notes, my watering schedule says I should be watering my pots today. I got sidetracked this morning with other things to do with building new web pages for orchid societies and supplying some bits and bobs and having to go and find them and fiddle with them before they could be sent. I got sidetracked. It's now lunchtime. So they're going to get left till tomorrow. And I'm not going to walk away and shut this door worrying that they're all going to die because they didn't get watered when they were supposed to. It's the middle of flipping winter. You know, it's only 19 degrees out here, and I can make that go lower if I choose, which I will when I shut the door. I'll take it down to 18, that's all it needs out here. And with the lower temperatures and the short days, you can leave your orchids a day or two. Now, if you're growing in the home, it's a different thing altogether because you've got heat. Well, I assume you have, unless you're sat around in your hat, coat, gloves and scarf, which most people don't do. So if you're growing in the home, it's a different thing altogether, and watering schedules are going to be more compressed. They're going to be closer together because things will dry in that sort of heat. And if you've got artificial lighting and you've extended your day lengths as well as having heat, then for you it's almost like summer, you know. So yes, your watering schedules, you do need to keep on top of things, especially if you've got mounts. I've got mounts out here. This is their third day and they're not going to get done. They'll get done tomorrow. The ones that will suffer the most and start thinking their throat's been cut, where's my water, are things like the Tolumnias. And most other things won't bat an eyelid because by the time they've realised they haven't had much water recently, it'll be dark and the temperature will drop, so they won't care. Yeah? So it's a cosy feeling. It's a feeling that, as a generalisation, everything out here could do with watering today, and none of it's going to get done because once it gets past lunchtime, I don't water in case there's wet on the plants as we go into the low temperatures. It gets dark early nowadays. You know, your lunchtime relative to getting dark, that gap is not very big. So I like to water in the morning. If there's any moisture around on plants, with the heater and the fan coming on, it's going to dry them off. So yeah, I'm quite happy to just walk away. And it is a cosy feeling. I can imagine a few years ago I wouldn't have dreamt of done it. You know, if I was due to water, I'd break my neck to actually achieve that, you know, whereas now I just let that go. And there are times when I sort of think, I could probably do with adding a bit of feeding this time round. Oh, I can't be bothered. And I know that nothing's going to die. The worst that can happen if you don't feed when you think you ought to have done is there might be a little tiny bit of setback that you probably won't even see, because at the end of the day the orchids don't need much food, and if they miss one it's not the end of the world. So yeah. You know, if you think I'm feeding my pots every third watering and my waterings are somewhere between 8 and 10 days. So think how long they're going without any food in between. And I'm not worried. It's just, as I said, for me it's like a cosy, warm feeling that it's okay. There is nothing out here that is urgent enough that I have to drop what I'm doing and deal with it. And if there is, it's because I don't know it's there yet. And I'll find it tomorrow when I water. But I am seriously thinking about changing this collection. There's some things that grow okay for me. You know, they don't cause me any problems. And yet I've sort of grown tired of them. And this is something that happened at the last clear out. It's a case of, you know, I bought an orchid and I loved it at the time. And since then I've bought some more similar type orchids that I actually like more. So do I need all of them? Or can that one that once upon a time I liked that now is sort of almost just taking up space? Because when it blooms I sort of think, okay. It hasn't got that special that it once had, simply because other things have come in on top of it and replaced it with what in my mind I think of as better, if you see what I mean. So I think come the spring we will be having a clear out again. And much to your shock and horror, I'm thinking of dropping the winter resters. This is its size. Look at it. You know, look at the amount, the dangly space that they take up. And every time I pick one of those up and try and move it, it knocks something. You know, that big fat cane there will knock this plant. You know, which then knocks that plant. So I'm trying to sort of look at things and think, does your size justify itself? Now, if you are an orchid like this, your size will never get questioned. I could have probably 1,000 of those in this grow room. I wouldn't be able to look after them, but but given their size, you know, so size does come into it basically. You know, I mean, this orchid is coming into bloom for the first time for me. It's a large mount. It's not a huge plant, but the spikes are incredibly long. I've got a blasted bud there. How dare you? You know, so, but then when I got it in bloom, I loved it. When it blooms this time, I might sort of think, oh, those blooms aren't very big. And then I thought they were fragrant. They don't seem to be. You know, I may change my mind. Now, if you get this one, the Tahitian Dancer, that grows reasonably well for me. It blooms well for me. The fragrance is absolutely stunning. I love that deep purple colour with that splash of deep golden yellow. That's not going anywhere. I can't imagine getting something that has a similar plant, produces that sort of spike, those sort of spikes, that fragrance and that colour. I can't imagine anything superseding that, if you see what I mean. Where I sort of, where this is the one that's fifth down the list and gets dropped off. That's not going to happen with something like that. But some of these cattleyas up here, look at the flipping size of them, you know. And having decided to grow them in the holy clay pots, they are a right pain when they come round to repotting. Luckily, that doesn't happen often. But you see what I'm getting at anyway. There are times when you sort of think, that orchid for me has run its course. It's had its day, it did well for me, I really enjoyed its company and its blooms and or its fragrance, or both preferably. But other things now have taken its place, if you see what I mean. I mean, everybody thought the bulbophyllum Elizabeth Ann Buckleberry was really nice when it bloomed. Quite honestly, it didn't do that much for me. And look at the size of the plant and the pot it's in. How many pots of this size could I get where that is? You see what I'm getting at? But the cosy feeling is just when you just don't need to worry about your plants. Well, unless you're going on a fortnight's holiday, you might have a twinge of worry then, and rightly so. But you know what I mean. It's when your day-to-day running of the plants is not giving you issues. It's almost a routine. And when it's a routine, oh no, I've just spotted. I'll get that down. That's just opened. That wasn't open yesterday. This is one of the plants I bought back from Jeff's place. And I've got to find somewhere to put it now. We'll put it there for now. And then we'll have to twist the bloom round. But yeah, this is the one that came back from Jeff's with the buds on. See, now I didn't know what this was going to look like. And that is quite attractive, and it may be a colour changer. But if that's it, and it doesn't change colours, it might not justify its existence. We shall see. I mean, that's not a deep yellow lip. The red spotting is bordering on pink. This bronzy colour is a little nondescript, but it's an attractive shaped bloom, and it's not a bad plant. So that's, you know, we'll see. But I got that, I picked that one because it had buds on. I thought at least we get to find out what it looks like. So that's that. That will never go anywhere as long as it lives. Emphasis on as long as it lives, but it looks like it's having a good go at that at the moment. Nice new growth and loads of roots. My zygo, we have roots, and we also have existing roots in the pot not dying, so it seems to be okay now. So again, quite a large strappy plant, but when these bloom, you know, they are, to me, they are exceptional as orchid blooms. Their colours, the depth of colour, shape of the blooms. So, you know, if I can get the flipping things to grow, I may have a couple more of them. And I can sacrifice other Oncidium types. I'm on about type of plant, not, you know, zygos are sort of out on their own, really. But, you know, there are some that can go. And that may happen. So, I mean, I've got 3 Paphiopedilums. I'm not that keen on any of them, and 2 of them have never bloomed for me. And the one that does bloom is just not a very nice plant, not a good example of that plant. So this is where my sort of thoughts are coming from. There are some plants that I've had for as long as I can remember, and they're still here, and they probably always will be. And some of that is the fact that I've managed to keep that plant going that long, and it's still looking good and still growing well. So it earns its keep, if you see what I mean. But yeah. But that cosy feeling comes, some people get it sooner than others, and a lot of it will depend on what you grow and where you grow it and how much you're pushing boundaries. The more you push the boundaries, the more issues will occur. And that is it, short and simple. If you find a couple of types of orchids that do really well in the place where you grow them, you won't get issues. Because in that environment with those orchids, you're an expert. You know exactly what you're doing. Well practiced, you know, procedures and everything, and it'll just be great. And you can get an awful lot of enjoyment out of that. But then sometimes you sit back and you think, it's getting a bit ordinary. Perhaps I need a challenge. And then you go and get something that you haven't grown before. And then the worry comes back and your cosy feeling's gone out the window. But we do need a challenge now and again. I firmly believe that. Everything sweet and cosy all the time can lead to just sort of routine, mundane, ordinary, you know. So it's nice to have a challenge now and again. But, I've certainly got a few in here that are challenging, shall we say. Some of them it's a light issue. You know, my Africana, Ancelia africana, that lives in the top of trees, right at the top of the trees in Africa. How the hell am I going to get that amount of light here in the UK? So the chances of that blooming for me are relatively slim. So it's a big challenge. I'm finding it easy enough to grow, but getting it to bloom is another thing. I had a Brassivola glauca once upon a time. Do you think that thing would bloom? It ended up going. I got fed up with it not blooming. And again, It was probably light. It just needed that little bit more light than I could possibly give it. So the challenges are good, but if you set yourself a challenge and you lose, then that orchid's not for you. Perhaps it's for somebody else then. You know, you don't sort of think, oh, you disgust me, you're going in the bin. You know, let somebody else have a go. So there we go then. That's my chat for today, is cosy feeling. A feeling where you can come out and look at your orchid collection and turn around and walk away from it with a little smile on your face, knowing it's all okay. Or it's probably okay, and it's at least okay until the next time you have a good look at it, in which case you might find some things that perhaps you should have done the day before. So be it. I just wanted to point the camera through that gap. My dendrobium spike, the one that I didn't break off, is pushing on quite nicely in here now. Buds are forming. Still quite a long way off blooming, I believe, because those are large blooms. So, you know, we've still got some waiting to do, but it's pushing on nicely. Again, that's a huge plant in a bucket. It's a dendrobium. It should not be in a bucket. But I need to deal with that. But I'm not going to deal with it until it pushes new growths and new roots out. And it seems okay where it is. I've decided to bloom, but that's probably the time of year rather than how happy it is. So, you know, that's got to have something done with it. You know, it's a Latoria type. So I obviously go very, very careful watering that in the winter time in a bucket. You know, it needs to be in a much smaller pot. That plant would be happier in a pot that size. So we will deal with that as and when we get an opportunity and we see new roots growing, whatever point that is, even if I have to wait half a year. This is good bark, it's quality bark, and it's new. So it hasn't, you know, I suspect Zena potted that not too long before she gave it to me. So that's good. Anyway, I shall leave it at that. That's the only new thing that I spotted this morning, is this little one that's come out. I don't know what the name is, and I doubt it's got a tag on it, knowing me, especially as it's a mount. No, fat chance. But I do know what it is in my notes, because it's the one that came from Jeff that had a bud on it. It's the only one, so that's that. You know, I've just seen a problem up here. This lovely Dendrobium phalaenopsis type, Thai angel, that's been in bloom for absolutely ages. You just cast your eye down the plant. One leaf, 2, 3. Now those are old canes, fair enough. Leaves on the new canes are okay. A new cane is okay, but there's no new growth showing yet. And it hasn't got a brilliant root system, so that might cause me a problem down the line. But it's not going to cause me a problem today because I'm walking away from it. There's a couple of Tolumnias up here, need remounting. They've been on their mounts too long, they're starting to get tired. This one, for instance, it's not a today problem, but you can see the older parts of the plant have started to sort of die back a bit. Massive root system, lovely new growth there, down the bottom of the plant, and it's curled upwards towards the light and produced a mass of new roots. So this has got plenty of roots, it's got new growths pushing out in several places, but the overall look of that plant is a little tired. And it's this back end over here that I might just be able to remove and leave it on its mount. Possibly. But it's been on that mount a long time. It's one of my favourites as well, Tolumnia peach, so I don't want to ruin it. So with care, and we'll see how we get on with that eventually. But yeah, nothing much else going on out here. The tiny twinkle is opening more and more blooms each day. That's a nice looking Oncidium type. Small, compact, lovely delicate flowers, and even though those blooms are tiny, for some reason you can see them individually as well as seeing them as a mass. Oh, and the fragrance is just wafted over this way as well. It gets caught on that little fan up there and pointed towards me. So yeah, so I'm going to have a computer day today. I've got backups to do, and I've got some things that have got to be dragged out of backups. And I have a talk to get ready for the 9th, well, before the 9th, because at least a couple of people will have to look it over before I put it out. So I've got to get that together as well, and that involves getting lots of things from lots of different places into one place and organising them and making them look pretty, sort of thing, and then putting a soundtrack to it. So I do that in bits, and we'll see where we go. But tomorrow I need to get out here early in the day, so it'll be one of those days where I get up with a bit of a bustle in my step, a spring in my step, because if I start getting lazy and turn the telly on and watch the news and get my whatnot down in a comfy chair, I might not get up again. So we'll have to get busy tomorrow and get at it and get this lot done. I won't do it all in one day. It'll end up getting spread over 2 days, so be it. Most of the cooler, shadier ones actually got watered a day or two ago because I picked one up and it was dry. So I just quickly went round the others and just lifted their pots and thought, yeah, I'll do you, you know, you're still wet, blah, blah, blah. And I also watered the Miltoniopsis when I got them out to look at them, to do the cooler, shadier video. One of the Miltoniopsis had become 3. So I had to get 3 of those pots out. Well, having got all the others out of the way to get those 3 out, I thought, well, we just as well water them while we're at it. So some have been done recently, but others haven't. And there will be mounts out here with large volumes of moss that are probably still slightly damp. I mean, this one will be. Yeah, that's slightly damp. That's not bone dry. It's not far off it, but it's not bone dry. So it does vary. The Senili up there will still be damp. That's got very compacted old moss, live moss. So that's the difference, I think. If your moss has been on the mount an awful long time and it's alive, it's growing, then you don't have to worry about it. It can live there forever. That's how the orchid would normally grow, on a moss-covered branch. But it's living moss, that's the difference. The old zombie moss goes off because it's dead, unless it decides to come back to life. Anyway, I will sort out something for tomorrow, and this is just a chat really, but it's somebody else's video I watched really, and it's just, you know, that cosy feeling comes on you, it creeps up on you. It's not something that happens overnight, and sometimes you'll relapse and you'll start getting your little worry factor again, but when most of the time you just feel that cosy feeling that everything's okay, and the few little bits that aren't, you're on top of. You can deal with them. You take them in your stride, if you see what I mean. And that makes this incredibly pleasurable when you get to that stage. But as I said, if it stays like that too long with no challenges, you know, you might have to give yourself a kick and go and get something obscure and see if you can keep that alive. All good fun. Anyway, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.